Hello, well, I'm finally back. I'm sure some of you were wondering what the heck happened to me. Well, let me put it this way. I had pneumonia again, but now I'm fine. And so I thought it would be appropriate to start doing our videos again, just in time for Christmas. And I hope that everybody is doing well, and none of you are sick, and none of your family and or friends are sick. And let's just hope that everybody is okay. My story today is called The Lady Wore Pants. One morning on a Sunday, my mother told me that I should go down to the embankment by the river and see what I could find for a salad. She said that she had been able to buy a small piece of meat for my dad, and then we were going to have some carrots and potatoes, and she thought it would be appropriate to maybe have a little salad to go with it. And I always used to like that because I never knew what I could find. I mean, sometimes there were things, that weren't always there. So I took my little basket and I walked down by the embankment, and I was finding chives, and there were a lot of beautiful new leaves from dandelions. And then I thought, wow, what is that up there by the road? So I walked back up and I saw that there was a gooseberry bush. I couldn't believe my luck. So I picked some of the gooseberries, and then I found some strawberries. They are wild strawberries. They're really tiny, but they were very sweet. So I was really happy about that. And then at one point, while I'm down on my knees and I'm picking stuff, all of a sudden I hear this voice, and it says, "What are you doing, little girl?" And I turned around, and it was this lady that I had seen before. She must have been visiting somebody, and I really liked her. She looked very different. I'd never really seen a lady look like that, because she always wore pants, and she wore jackets that looked like a man's suit, and she always had on what I thought were like really shiny men's shoes. And I just thought that it was interesting that she looked so different. And she said, so what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm collecting salad ingredients. And she said, you're doing what? I said, well, there's all this stuff that grows wild that you can eat. And she said, really? Like what? And I said, well, here, look in my basket. Those leaves are from dandelions. And she said, well, why didn't you pick them right here? And I said, oh, when they're like that, you can't eat them, because once it has flowers, the leaves are very bitter and they don't taste good. And one of the kids that is at the school where I'm going to, he made the mistake of picking those, and then his mother got so mad she smacked him because they're bitter. And she said, that's amazing. And you, how do you know this? And I said, oh, my dad and my mother taught me. And she said, well, what can you find? And I said, well, it depends. Sometimes I even find mushrooms. And I said, look, I've got some strawberries, and I found some gooseberries. And there's just all sorts of things that grow wild that you can eat that are really good. And she said, well, that's interesting. You're pretty smart. I did not know that. And she said, so is that what you do on Sundays? And I said, well, I can't do it during the week because I work. And she said, wait a minute, what do you mean you work? How old are you? And I said, I'm 10. And she said, and you work? I said, oh, yes, I work for Clara Science. I work in the nursery. And she said, oh, you know what? Then I think I know who you are, because I'm friends with them. And she told me about a little girl that lives just right around the corner that has a fox, and that recently won an award for growing a purple dahlia. So that's you. And I said, yeah, that's me. And she said, you know what? She told me your name, but I can't remember. I've never heard it. And I said, oh, it's Aranka. She said, that's really pretty. I like that name. So she said, don't you play with children? And I said, well, no, usually I don't, because most of the parents have told their kids to not play with me because they said that there's something wrong with me. And she went, what do you mean wrong? And I said, well, I don't know what they mean either, but I can't play with most of the kids. But I'm happy. I have my garden and I work for Tante Clara. And she said, well, what do you think about her husband? And I didn't really want to say. So I sort of looked down at the ground and she said, oh, you don't like him, do you? And I said, well, not really. I'm sort of afraid of him. And she said, well, that's a good thing. Just stay away from him. But she said, let's not talk about that. So what else are you going to try to find? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll just have to see what I can come up with. And she said, but it's so early in the morning. Why are you doing it this early? I said, well, it's better to pick it early in the morning because I have to be back home early because on Sundays we have a classical concert. And she said, classical concert? I said, yeah, it's on the radio. And my grandma and my dad and my mom, we all listened to it. And she said, you like classical music? I said, oh, yes. Especially, I like piano. Really? Who are your favorite composers? And I said, well, I like Maurice Ravel. She said, you wait a minute. How old are you? You know about that? And I said, oh, yes, and I like Chopin. And one day, my parents said they're going to take me to the opera. And she said, you know what? Do you know who Goethe is? I said, oh, yes. I said, he has a really wonderful opera that someday when I get a little bit older, I would like to go to the opera. It's called Die Zauberflöte. It's a magic flute. And she looked at me and she said, you know, you're the most amazing little kid. I never knew about any of that stuff until I was about 18. But she said, do you think your parents would let me take you to the opera? I said, I don't know. We can ask my papa. He usually makes the decisions. She said, I'd like to come home with you. Would that be okay? And I said, yeah. I said, my basket is full anyway. So I said, why don't you come with me? So we went home, and my father said, oh, now you're bringing people home? And I said, yes, this lady needs to talk to you about something. And she said, I have tickets to a performance of the Zauberflöte, and I'm wondering whether you would allow me to take your little girl. And my parents both went, that would be spectacular. Oh, yes, if you could do that. But while you're here, look, can you smell this? And she said, yes, it smells like you're baking something. And he said, yes, I made croissants. And we would like to invite you to stay here. I can only give you one. And she said, well, that's better than anything anybody has given me in a long time. I'd love to do that. And he said, it's about time for us to turn the radio on and have our Sunday concert because that's what we do. And she said, yeah, I know. The little one already told me. That was the first time I got to dress up in my finest little dress, which was my mother had made it. It had been fabric that had come from the United States, and I really liked it. It was a lightweight wool that was pink and green, and my mother made a skirt for me and a little jacket, and then she made me a blouse to go with it, and I thought it was very, very pretty. And this nice lady took me to the opera. It was amazing. I'd never seen anything like it, and of course it was a real treat to do something like that. So after she brought me home from the concert, some of the neighbors saw us. And later that day, one of the neighbors who lived way around the corner came over and said, I've got to talk to you people. And my father said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I cannot believe what is wrong with you people. We all know that you are weird, but how can you let that woman take your little girl? what is wrong with you? You know she is horrible. And my father said, I don't know what you mean by that. What do you mean horrible? Well, you know she's weird. And my dad said, do you want to be more specific about this? Would you like to elaborate on weird? What is weird about her? And this woman said, well, for one, she wears men's suits. And, you know, I can't believe that you are that stupid that you're letting her take your little girl. God only knows what she's going to do with her. And my father, I know when he used to get pissed off, he got very still. And then you could sort of see this, like he was just going to explode. And he said, I cannot believe what is wrong with you people. What is wrong with you? She's different. Yeah, let's face it, she's different. She's a lesbian. She is not a person that assaults children. What is wrong with that? So she's a lesbian. So what? She's a nice person, and we happen to like her. And guess what? From now on, whenever she wants to come and visit, our house is open to her. There's nothing wrong with her. Oh my God, we knew that you people were weird, and now you're hanging out with perverts? And my father just shook his head and he said, look, whether somebody is green, yellow, or purple, whether somebody is a lesbian or a homosexual, that doesn't make them bad. They just have a different life choice. And that's why you people think that there's something wrong with our little girl, because she's not like the rest, and that's really, really sad. And I thank you to not interfere in our lives. We're very happy, and we like this person. We like Ursula. And just for your information, the woman is a teacher in Berlin. She's a PhD. So your prejudice is so totally absurd. And I want you to leave and don't ever come back here. My dad was great. I just went, oh, thank you, Papa, because I really like that lady. And he said, that's good because we like her too. And the next time she's in town, we're going to have her come over. And so there. And that's my story for today. And I hope you liked it. And toodaloo.